It's time for Baseball's Last Frontier, stories from the Pecos League, the podcast that will open your door to baseball's entry level, telling you the stories of the teams, players, and coaches of an independent minor league circuit. I'm your host, Bruce McClure, and I have the pleasure of introducing to you my friend, partner, and co-host, Evan Katz. Evan, how you doing today, man?
Good, Bruce. It's great to be back on the East Coast and be closer to you in central New Hampshire. This is episode 11. Last week, I was in North Platte, safely drove to Denver, and then hopscotched over the CrowdStrike air traffic impact, and I'm back here in Swampscott.
He's just bragging about his spot near the water with this. So yeah,
2 blocks from the ocean. But you know, the thing about baseball is you never know where it's going to lead. So I was out in North Platte visiting Todd Everleth, the manager of the North Platte 80s, and helping with the broadcast. And we're broadcasting the game, the 80s versus the Trinidad Triggers. And I noticed in the lineup of the Triggers was someone with some Boston roots. And I had picked up the name of Peter Bocchino actually months earlier, when I was with the Invaders as pitching coach, and I was looking at the rosters, and I always look to see if there's any players from the Northeast, and Peter's name caught my attention. And during the broadcast of the game, I looked him up on the internet and saw that he went to a couple of colleges in New England and grew up in a town two doors next to me, and in fact was friends with the younger brother of someone I did a profile on, Dario Pisano from Saugus. So, you know, it's funny, you're out in Nebraska and you find out you're the 2 degrees of separation from someone in baseball. And so today we're welcoming to the show Peter Bocchino, graduate of Governor's Academy in Byfield, Mass., 3 college baseball career, and a 4-year veteran of the Pecos League. Nice to talk to you again, Peter.
How's it going? It's good to hear from you again, Evan.
So are you in Colorado right now?
Yeah, we're home. We have our last game today versus Blackwell, and then we start the playoffs tomorrow.
Oh, well, good luck. So, Peter, you've been in the Pecos League for 4 years. You played on 3 colleges. You attended Governor's Academy in Byfield, Mass. Interestingly enough, I'm assuming you know Brandon Lopez, who's pitching for the Invaders, right?
Yeah, Brandon, we played high school baseball together. He was on the team as a freshman, so I was a year older than him. So we played together for 3 years, and then we were pretty much best friends all the way through, and afterwards it was me, him, and this kid Luke Glancy, who ended up playing at Tulane University in Tampa. So us 3 always hung out even after school for years.
Now, Brandon pitched at Bowdoin, and you played at St. Michael's in Bentley in New England. Did you ever face Brandon?
No, so St. Michael's was Division II, Bentley was Division II, and then I finished up at a school called Lander University, which was down in South Carolina. So I never got the opportunity to face him afterwards.
So before we jump to your professional career, I just have to throw in a little bit of baseball history. Governor's Academy is north of Boston. And according to Baseball Reference, the earliest Governor's Academy graduate to play professional baseball is a fellow by the name of Franklin Freeman, who graduated in 1948. He then signed with the Lynn Red Sox and was a teammate of future Major League Baseball slugger Dale Long and one of MLB's last left-handed hitting catchers. So we've going back here over 70 years at Governor's Academy. We've got Peter here playing in professional baseball. Brandon is in professional baseball. And Shane Smith, was he at the Governors when you were there, Peter?
He left. Or no, when I left, I think is when he got there. So I never got to play with him.
Yeah. So Shane Smith is now with AA with the Milwaukee Brewers. So Governor's Academy has a nice history of sending players to pro ball. So why don't you tell us a little bit more, Peter, about your progression? You gradually migrated south, starting to play in St. Michael's in Vermont, Bentley in Math, and Lander in South Carolina. Tell us about your college progression in baseball.
Yes. So I would say college baseball was I don't know, it was kind of definitely an interesting journey, but at least for me, like I originally went to Governor's Academy to be a basketball player. So I always played a little bit of baseball, but at the time going into Governor's, I hadn't played for 2 years. It was pretty much all basketball. And then had a couple knee surgeries back to back and decided, at that time, my future in basketball was I had Division III opportunities, Babson, MIT, Haverford, and in my head, I didn't really think I had a shot at being a professional basketball player, but I always played baseball, and it was something I was pretty naturally good at. So I figured if I brought the work ethic I had in basketball into baseball, I could probably go a little bit further. But, even though I was starting from a deficit, so got into baseball at Governor's. First year really going for it was junior year. Ended up having a pretty solid year. I think I hit 3-something with 3 home runs, and then played some summer ball, got some college opportunities. I remember I got recruited by a lot of Division II and III schools. Ultimately, I chose St. Mike's because they gave me a pretty good package financially, and it was an opportunity where I could play in a quality league like the NE10 at the time, which was wood bat. It was an opportunity where I could play every day. So I went to St. Michael's, and freshman year was it was a pretty good year for me. I was coming off of the summer before, believe it or not. I got thoracic outlet in my right shoulder, which led to a blood clot. So I had a really tough summer. I think I had got my top rib removed, and then was on blood thinners all summer. Ended up getting internal bleeding, so I had 3 surgeries going into freshman year.
No, Lord.
Yeah, so that was really tough, but I ended up having a pretty good freshman year. I played every single day, hit 250, double-digit doubles and all that, and then the next year, coming into sophomore year, that was like I felt like I was at my best, but I decided to make a couple swing changes, which if you talk to any baseball player, if they play long enough, they're going to make some mechanical choices as a hitter that either work or don't work. And that did not work. That was my first year really struggling, hit below 200. The program at St. Mike's, it was a nice school and all that, but it wasn't really headed in a good direction at all. And for some reason, the coach at Bentley, Bob DeFelice, we played against him. He kind of liked how I was as a player, and he gave me an opportunity to go to Bentley, so I got to play there. Played there the next year, and then graduated from there my senior year, but that thoracic outlet in the shoulder kind of came back as a senior, so I ended up sitting out my senior year, got the graduate degree, and then head down to Lander University. Just, connections in baseball, you never know where you're going to head. End up down there, which that was a very good level of play. And it took me a little bit to get on the field. I didn't end up starting until like halfway through 3 quarters. But I think once I got to Lander University, that was like where I really started to like open up as a hitter and do what I thought I could do. So that's pretty much my college journey.
So it really, people think about players playing professional baseball and you've got this gradual progression and things just get better and better. You really had a bumpy ride. What was the turning point that you felt when you got to Lander, and then that spring you finish up there and you end up at Roswell, the Pecos League, and end up having quite a strong season for Roswell. What was the turning point for you that allowed you to really perform at a high level consistently?
All right. Well, I would say I had a couple little turning points in that year, but I would say the first thing was when I was at Bentley and St. Michael's. I felt like I was in a position where, not that I wasn't challenged, because baseball is challenging, but like I always was like the kind of guy on the team that had like the most raw power. And so it was always like if I put it together, I would be like, oh, if you put it together. So it kind of felt like it was like me versus me. And I don't know, it was kind of like, plus like up at those 2 schools, especially Bentley, like it's such a high academic institution that like a lot of kids aren't trying to go on and play pro ball unless it's like a perfect opportunity. So when you're kind of the one player that's spending 3 hours outside of practice working on his swing and you're struggling, it kind of makes the struggles even harder, because you see like some of your teammates that might not necessarily care as much, and they're getting 2 hits and you're striking out twice. It really, like, it stings. But when I got to Lander, I was at a school where a lot of the kids were transferring from big schools like South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia Southern. And it was the first time I was in a spot where I had to be better than the next guy as a baseball player, not just physically, because I had guys that were as good physically or better and had like a bigger profile. So it was like, in one way, the competition brought that out. And then in the other way, it's like, if you're at a school and one of your teammates was drafted out of high school or played SEC baseball, and you see him struggling at the Division II level, it makes your struggles like not necessarily hurt as much. You kind of just realize, all right, this is baseball. Like, you're going to go through those. So
Yeah.
I feel like that was something that really helped. And then it kind of took the pressure off me of like, I got to perform. And then it kind of just like, when I went out there, like, I just kind of like was unleashed. And I would say, my college career wasn't really what I wanted it to be, but the big turning point, I would say, was my senior day. I was starting, and we faced this lefty. I think he might be AA, AAA right now. He's from Arizona State at the time, playing USC Aiken, and I ended up going 4 for 4 with 2 home runs off him that were like very far. And just the way I was like commanding the batter's box, it was like something completely different. So from that point on, like, yeah, I was like a different player, I feel like. So I don't know, it was a senior day. It was kind of cool. I feel like when you have big moments like that, I remember like hearing my name called and them announcing like your accolades, so to say. And I remember just thinking in my head, like, all the adversity that I went through and hard work, and just hearing like the accolades of like, all right, like, in my head, I felt like I really didn't accomplish as much as I wanted to. So I kind of felt like in that moment, like, I was kind of like, oh, let's go for it. You know what I mean? Let's stop waiting. Like, this is kind of the time. And just seeing like all the stuff you go through, kind of like your baseball career kind of flashes before you.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're going to play again. So you just, I don't know. It was like playing with freedom. And then from that moment on, I feel like for the most part, I've been playing with a lot more freedom than before. So, yeah.
So how did you make it to the Pecos League? Fill us in on your first year in Roswell. What was it like? How did you get to the Pecos League, and what was it like joining Roswell in 2019?
Yeah. So one of the places I used to hit, I don't know, a person that like used to follow the hitting coach, he played in the Pecos League. His name was Taylor Zutenhorst. So he sent me and another guy, like, we wanted to keep playing, but we didn't know what to do. So he sent us to Garden City, actually. And I had a very good spring training with Garden City. And this was kind of my first taste of pro ball, where it was like, I mean, the last at bat of the whole spring training, I hit a home run dead center off a guy that was one of their starting pitchers, and ended up getting told there wasn't a spot for me on the team. And at the time, I'm thinking like, one, I was like, man, I can't believe I didn't make it. But two, they tell me, oh, we got a spot for you in Roswell. So I'm thinking in my head, like, I don't, like, they're probably lying to me. But I took hopped on the flight at 6 a.m. from Garden City. The airport is very small. Flew into Roswell, took batting practice. I think I took like 18 swings, and I don't know, it felt like it was like last chance, I guess. I don't know. Took like 18 swings, hit 10 home runs in BP, and they're like, all right, you're batting fourth tomorrow. You're playing third base. So,
surprise.
So I was like, all right. So I don't know. You kind of learn with pro ball, like, even if you perform, there might not necessarily be a spot for you. But yeah, and I got to Roswell, and it was a great experience. Unfortunately, like, that year I tore my quad. So if you look at the sample size that year, I only got to play in like 20 something games. But Yeah, it was tough. I was playing on like a pretty bad quad tear, so I was playing at like 50% running around, but I hit well, and we were a good team, so it was fun. It was just fun to play baseball like that.
How did you make the transition from college? You know, in Roswell, obviously, you know how hot it is there. And
Yeah.
in college, you're not playing every day. How did you make that transition from playing 4 games a week or 5 games a week with breaks in between versus to playing every day in the Pecos League?
For me, honestly, physically, I made the mistake of like, I don't know, like hopping out of a car where you're driving all day and thinking you could steal a base in the desert, every once in a while. I feel like the more you play every day, the more you understand, like, there's certain times, not that you can't play hard, but like you can't run full speed on every single play. Now, like if you're at second base and you got to get your guy an RBI, you got to get that, or you got to make a play. But like, if you ground out to the shortstop and you can see the play in front of you, you need to run fast enough where if he misplays it, you're safe. But you can't be. Sometimes you got to give up like a sprint to not get hurt when you're playing every day. So that was one thing physically, but mentally, I liked playing every day a lot more, and I liked the aspect of professional baseball where it was, I like the part of like if I go 0 for 5 with 3 Ks yesterday, I get an opportunity to play today and fix that right away. And I like the aspect of not that you don't have coaching and all that, but in professional baseball, a lot of times it's like if you do well, you know, you stay and they let you do what you got to do. And if you do poorly, they send you home. And, if I have a bad game, it's kind of up to me to figure out how to hit as opposed to in college. I never liked the days off because if you're doing well, you want to play the next day. And then if you're not doing well, you got to sit on that. And then also you have 3 coaches that are, they're working in their best, like how they think is best, but you might think a certain way of like, all right, I think I was getting beat. I was getting beat here. This is what I got to do to fix it. And then you got 3 different coaches where they think you're struggling because of other reasons. And especially when you're young and you don't have a lot of success in the game, it's kind of hard to navigate that. And you can kind of start spinning in a circle, which is kind of what I did at Bentley, as opposed to when I got to Roswell, it was pretty much just, it's all on you. So it's like if you're a serious player, and I've probably spent too much time thinking about hitting in my life, it's like, all right, I can tell you if I spent a game, swinging at sliders in the dirt, all right, like I need to work today. I need to work on looking for the ball at the top of the zone, stay back. If I'm wasn't getting the fastballs, was fouling everything back, getting beat, it's like, all right, I got to try to get the bat head out front. And just kind of that simplicity of it kind of led me to do well, where I feel like if you look at my game logs throughout my career, it's like if I ever had like a bad game, I feel like I always like came back from that pretty quickly. Whereas in college, I'd have some pretty long slumps.
So you're now in your 5th year in the Pecos League. You're a veteran. You performed at a really high level, and I don't know that the Trinidad roster where you've been for the last 3 years, or you with the Colorado Snow Sox in 2021. I mean, as a veteran, do you have players coming up that are new to the league or struggling? Did they come to you to ask for some tips on how to cope with what they're dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, the one thing is, I remember when I came in the league, I kind of always viewed everyone as my equal to an extent, because I feel like athletes have egos, so they're gonna think they're just as good as a veteran. So I don't know if a guy comes into the league or younger players on my team, they don't necessarily ask for advice, but I try to be the kind of teammate that if I see a guy like really, I try to come to him like a little bit later, like when he needs it, rather than right away.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember last year we had like a younger shortstop that he was having a really bad first half of the year. And you could tell when guys start struggling, like a lot of people like to add input, and to an extent that can kind of frustrate you. But, I waited a little bit and then I came to him halfway through the season and, kind of just put my arm around him and then just kind of told him what I was seeing. And he ended up finishing the year over 300 and he was down pretty low. So I try to kind of wait for it to be like when I see it, like, and it seems pretty obvious, like how they could get going. And then, I don't know, more like when they need it than when I recognize it right away. Because if you come to a guy too early, you might get frustrated, or not be willing to hear from you.
Peter's talking like a grizzled veteran here.
Bruce, so we talked about Peter performing at a high level, and that he's been trying to break through the I don't know what ceiling it is here, Bruce. Do you want to take it from here?
Well, he certainly proved himself in this ground. I'm looking at some of his statistics from over the past few years. He led this league in home runs in 2022. So there's some pop in that bat, huh, Peter?
Yeah. This year the home runs are a little bit down. I only got 7, but I missed, halfway right around the All-Star break is when I ended up going to Glacier. I probably missed about 10 games, and I haven't really gotten the home runs up to where I'd like them to be. But, I've hit for average all year, and my strikeouts keep going down. So
that's good.
I'll take that, but it is annoying when you're not hitting the home runs. And Evan was there in North Platte. I hit one foul that I think was fair, so I'm still a little salty about that one. I thought that got her.
There's always one every year.
Yeah.
So tell me about that experience, because you were signed by the Range Riders up there in the Pioneer League, right?
Yeah. So
what happened?
This has been, all right. So we'll start with last year. I was signed super early to go to Northern Colorado, and I went to spring training. And to be honest, I didn't have the best spring training. It was a limited sample size, but I didn't do much. And I feel like as a player that's not a catcher, middle infielder, center fielder, like if you show up to spring training, you kind of have to hit to show what you can do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yep. I didn't really do much, so got released. I was kind of mad about that because I'm like, all right, it's only 8 at bats, but you can kind of live with that. I'm like, all right, I didn't perform. This year, I started off in Brockton with the New England Knockouts, and that was a tough experience because I was going into this. I signed about a week before the season, so I knew I was going in as like, I don't know, like with Northern Colorado, I feel like I thought I had some security for an opportunity because, they were doing like press releases and talking about what I could do as a player. Whereas this year it was kind of like I was coming in just like, here's an opportunity. So I knew I was going to have to, perform. And I ended up having a really good camp. I went 4 for 10 with a home run, hit a double off top of the wall, off like 2 of their good arms. So I felt like in my head, I felt like I was the best hitter at camp and kind of proved it. It was nice to have the spring training where you prove it, but for whatever reason, just didn't make the team. Like they said, you did well, like you showed really well, but I think it was just like, you knew you were coming in like tough, like signing late. So there's guys we got to give a chance to. So it was kind of the polar opposite of Northern Colorado. So that was frustrating because I'm like, all right, I've gotten cut both ways. I've done well, got cut. I didn't do well, got cut. So now I'm thinking, all right, I feel like I've seen everything. Kind of just need to walk into a good opportunity. And then around the All-Star break, my phone rings to go to Glacier, which I didn't think I was Pioneer League eligible, but I don't know. The president of their team, I think they thought I was Pioneer League eligible. It had something to do with Baseball Reference. So they had me come down, did my physical in Montana, hit the bus to Boise, and the first night I was gonna pinch hit late in the game if the 6th ball came up, and then the next day I was going to DH, bat fifth, and I was probably going to play that whole series is what they told me. And so the first night I think I got left in the hole. I was gonna hit, didn't happen. Next day I show up to, get a good night's sleep, ready to play. I think we take BP, there's about an hour left to go, and they call me in the office, and they all look like super sad, and they told me that, someone informed the league to look at baseball cube and that I'm actually ineligible due to how many years I've played professional baseball, because they have the 3-year limit, which that was tough because I was about 30 minutes away from actually, being able to play in one of those partner leagues. So that was really frustrating. So that was tough. So I stayed there for a few days, worked out with them, and we were trying to get on with somewhere in the Atlantic or the Frontier, but there wasn't really an opportunity yet. So came back to Trinidad and, getting ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, that's not bad. You go from that situation right back into a playoff atmosphere. How has your experience been with Trinidad in the time that you've been there? Tell me about the town.
Yeah, it's been a good time. I mean, I feel like my manager is Aaron Stubblefield. We were actually teammates in Roswell, so he was one of my good friends in Roswell. So it's been good playing for him because, for the most part, like I feel as if, this is one of my former teammates. So obviously I have good trust in him and stuff like that. So I feel like I'm able to play my game. And yeah, I mean, I think the year before they really struggled, and then the year that Aaron got here and I started playing, we made it pretty deep in the playoffs. We made it to the second round. We beat Alpine the past 2 years. So yeah, this year we got a good team. We got off to a slow start, but yeah, I think we have a really good team this year. We picked up a lot of players. So our lineup's very dangerous, and then our bullpen is pretty good too. So I think this is our best team. This is the best Pecos team I've been on for sure. Like, we have about 7 guys right now that, if you're playing a playoff game where it's like less than 5 runs, I feel like there's about 7 hitters in the lineup. Whereas if they have their best game, like they can win the game by themselves, which kind of shows. Usually I feel like you got like 1 or 2 of those guys in a lineup, but like we have about 7 of them that can carry a lineup. So it's a pretty good team.
Now, you've also had some international experience. You were briefly in the Italian League?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the COVID year 2020, I ended up going down and playing for the Lexington Legends, and it was called like the Bourbon Trail. So it was like 4 teams, 2 teams in Lexington, 2 teams in Florence, and it was pretty good baseball. I mean, I was playing with Brandon Phillips, Ben Revere, Eric Young, Drew Ellis. All those guys were on my team. Former Red Sox Robbie Ross was one of our pitchers, as well as Henry Owens. Yeah, so that was a good league. A couple of our guys actually just debuted. Spencer Bivens, he was joining the team. Like, he had just came from playing overseas in Germany, like Division III guy. He got on the team as a reliever. He's actually with the Giants now, like in the big leagues, having success. So it was a good league. Yeah, so played there, did pretty well. Unfortunately, they didn't put it on Baseball Reference due to the fact that I think like there was a lot of active affiliated players because of the lockout. So never really got like credit for that year, I feel like, in terms of like getting a job, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't
So Peter, you're saying, just to interject for a second,
sure,
because so many people look at Baseball Reference, that they see your name. You felt you were a really competitive league in a COVID year, and now that information is just kind of blowing in the wind.
Yeah, so like, I got videos on my phone hitting home runs off guys that, I don't know where they're at now, but at the time they were second round picks out of Louisville, like up to AAA with the Brewers, stuff like that. I'm hitting behind like 5 big leaguers, and I'm not gonna say I went and like killed it like Pecos League numbers, but, in 25 games, I hit 245 with 3 home runs. So definitely held my own.
Would you rate that as the most competitive competition that you've been in?
Yeah, by far, for sure. Like it was, I think that year was probably the best independent league there was. I mean, I just saw the other day Florence's shortstop that was in that league, Tyler Fitzgerald.
Yep.
I was just scrolling through Instagram and said Tyler Fitzgerald 7 home runs in the last 8 games for the Giants. I'm like, oh, that guy was playing third that year in Florence. So that was definitely the most competitive. But yeah, between that year not going on Baseball Reference and then the Roswell and Lander year where I finally was doing well, but had like the injuries and stuff, didn't play a lot. I felt like, trying to build up your resume as a hitter. I feel like I still had to like get a lot of numbers online, but yeah, I went to the Italian Baseball League, which I know initially used to be a 64 game season. And that was a high level of play too, actually. Like that was, I don't know. I felt like it definitely wasn't as good as when I was in Lexington, but it felt like that year, the players we had and the imports, it was like, right around like Atlantic League, maybe a little higher than Frontier League, not as good as Atlantic League. But that year, while I was in spring training, is the year that they changed like the format on like the Italian rules. So like it went from 64 games to like right in the middle of spring training, they changed the format to 3 games a week, 24 games. So kind of, I feel like in Europe, if you look at like the Germany, France, like those leagues, like they'll pay you and take care of you, but it's very like they just play on the weekends, which is kind of casual. You know what I mean? Whereas Italy was more of like, it was the one league where it was more serious, play every night. If you look at the stadiums are very nice. And then, they kind of switched that format, which I was thinking in my head, like, man, this is going to kill my career. Like, if I play 18 games and do really well, they're going to say, well, all right, like small sample size. And then if I don't do well, like you're screwed anyway. So I was thinking in my head, like, man, like this sucks. Like I got to get out of here. I need to play every night. So I kind of like picked up my phone, started scrambling, tried to make some calls. That was actually the first year the Pioneer League was around, which, to be honest, the thing with the Pioneer League is age is definitely a big factor in that. Like they, compared to the other leagues, they really care about you being young, and I feel like that was my best year that I should have been in that league. Like I was like a good age for it, but at the time they just opened it up, so I didn't know what they were going to do, like who they were going to sign. So I ended up in Italy. By the time I called, they just broke spring training, so I couldn't really get a job. And then the only spot I don't know, I went back to, I guess I went to Colorado Springs because I called Trinidad actually, and they said they didn't have a spot for me at that time, so I went to Colorado Springs. But it was funny. Some of the like conversations you have in this game of like when you're trying to get a job and when they say no it's kind of crazy. Like I think it was Billings at the time. This may have been like 3 managers ago, but I was reaching out to them in Italy and I told them like my situation. I was trying to come, sent them some numbers with like some video, and they were all about it. And then the guy said, because I mentioned I was in Italy, he's like, "Oh, do you have your visa?" And I said, "No, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm from Massachusetts, so I don't need a visa. I'm just out here playing." And then I never heard back from him again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You were cool when you were Italian, and you were not a citizen. All of a sudden, you're an American citizen, and you're not persona non grata. What's up with that?
I know, right?
Come on.
I was like, man, I should have just said, yeah, I had my visa and came in and tried to speak Italian.
the cycle, you know, this is one of the things that's very typical of your top players in a league like the Pecos League. You got this cycle of hope and frustration, hope and frustration. So where are you now, Peter? And what are you thinking about when the playoffs are over this year? Well, what's your hope for the after the Pecos League ends in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, so I know I connected with a guy named John Marco that works with the Italian national team, and I think it was last fall we connected and we kind of talked a little bit, and we've stayed in touch. Like late spring, like he really started like responding to me because I was posting like some videos hitting, working out with guys and stuff like that, and then he invited me down to Florida for October to workout / tryout for the national team. So right now we've kept in touch throughout the season. I've sent him video and my stats throughout the year. So right now it's get back home after the season and, you know, probably like figure out like what's going on, like with my body, just make sure everything's healthy, and then probably hit the ground running, working out, and try to be ready for October and see what happens there. So I don't know. It's hard every year you go back. You know, you kind of put a full court press on trying to get a job, and I don't know. I've learned like it doesn't always what you think is going to work out isn't going to work out, but you know sometimes you just run into an opportunity too. So I guess like do your work to network and try to get an opportunity, but like the one thing you definitely have to do is you definitely have to keep playing. You know what I mean? You got to keep training. I like to honestly, like when I'm home, I literally spend probably 15 hours a week just on hitting. I work out up in New Hampshire with my hitting partner, this kid Ben Malgieri, who I think he'd be a great interview for you guys someday. He's in AA with the Tigers. Really nice kid. Went to Northeastern. We hit every day. We hit like probably 2-3 hours a day, 5 days a week. So yeah, I feel like you got to keep training, because if the phone rings and you're not ready, like, you know what I mean? Like you kind of just like ruined it. So definitely going to do that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like you've looked at my numbers too. If you look at my college career, like I think one thing people underestimate in baseball is like, I feel like people don't think they like you can necessarily get better as a player, but like if you look at my college numbers compared to now, like you can see that you can get better. So it's like putting in the work, you know. People, I think a lot of hitters are kind of, you always see it with baseball where they say like, oh, like they take 2 good rounds, oh, I feel good, I'm getting out, you know what I mean? But I feel like when it's in the, like imagine, like I'm a basketball guy. Like imagine like any good basketball player, Kobe Bryant, for example, walking in the gym, making 10 shots in the beginning of his workout, say, oh, I feel good, I don't want to mess up my shot. Like nah, like you got to practice.
Yep. You got it.
Peter just gave us a life lesson based on baseball with that's for sure. Sage advice right here. If the kids are listening today, listen to this man. Yeah. So this podcast is subtitled Stories from the Pecos League. And I want to ask Peter, do you have any stories that you fall back on that you can tell as you're sitting around, excuse me, with your friends or maybe the Thanksgiving table or whatever it is, that gives somebody an idea of what the Pecos League actually is? That makes sense?
Yeah, like do you want like a I don't know, kind of just like a almost like kind of like funny, like
funny, serious. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened. What do you got?
Well, for example, Peter, we had when I was at Roswell earlier in the year, we had a dust storm. The game was delayed due to a dust storm.
All right.
Which I don't know if that happened. So something like that. What really captures the essence of the Pecos League?
All right, I think they're gonna come from Roswell. My first one, they both involve animals, I guess. I got a few with animals. The first one is like being on deck, like in Roswell, and seeing tarantulas. I was like,
wait, hang on. What did you just say? Hang on.
yeah,
Hold on.
yeah, like being on deck. It's not like often. It's not like a lot of them, but like every once in a while, you just see a tarantula in Roswell, and that's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'd be running right alongside you, man. Yeah.
Yeah, you got like the some of the like guys that are from the country or whatever, like aren't scared, and then at the time we had like a 13-year-old Batgirl. Like I guess the tarantulas aren't vicious, but like she's like picking it up. I'm running away like terrified. So you got tarantulas, and then one of the craziest ones in Roswell my rookie year was there was like a diamondback in the middle of a game in left center, like a big diamondback snake.
This is not an Arizona diamondback. You're talking about a diamondback rattlesnake.
Yeah. So there was this kid on Santa Fe at the time playing shortstop named Garza, and it's kind of funny. At the time, I was a rookie, and he was probably as old as I am now, played as many games. And whenever I tell this story, I was like, yeah, this is how you've spent a long time in the Pecos League when this is normal to you. And this man, they call a timeout to stop the game because of snake. This man, I think we gave him a shovel. I gave him a shovel from our dugout. He went out there, I'm not kidding you, in the middle of the game, beheaded the snake.
Oh my God.
And shoveled it over the left center fence. And then the game resumed.
Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see.
I was like, holy smokes, this is crazy. And then I guess the last one would just be last year when I got released from the Owls and I showed up to spring training the first day. I have no idea what this was, but there was a horse in the outfield in Trinidad just running around, a wild horse.
A wild horse in the outfield.
Which I don't know how it got out there because, like, if you've ever been to Trinidad, like, it's pretty, like, especially around the field, it's pretty urban. Like, it's like a downtown and all that. So I have no idea how this horse got on the field. So we have to call, like, animal control or whatever.
Oh, man.
And then spring training started.
They're better than Evans.
You beat the dust storm story easily.
Yeah. There's a few, but yeah, those are the ones that came to the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, with the Pecos League though, I feel like in a lot of ways, like it gets a bad rep, but I mean, it's good baseball. I think a lot of people like to look at like the outliers, and like they kind of ignore the like what's going on like every night in the league. Like there's a lot of good players in this league that deserve to get an opportunity. People like to look at like the outlier stories, but like when you're like at the bottom rung of pro ball and you have a league that has 16 teams in the league, there's going to be some fringe things, but like if you look at like teams that are in playoff contention and like playing every night, like there's a lot of good talent on the field. Like our bullpen, we got only guys in our bullpen that don't throw over 90 miles an hour are sidearm guys, and they throw like 85, 87. So it's like, we got, it's real baseball out here. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And that is real baseball. For more information on the Pecos League schedule, check out their website at pecosleague.com. You can also catch all the action at pecosleague.tv. And finally, if you're a hardcore baseball fan, you need to join the Society for American Baseball Research, the premier baseball community, offering an amazing buffet of options to explore your fandom. SABR boasts more than 35 different research committees, over 70 regional chapters, and innumerable opportunities to connect with baseball minds across the world. For more information, go to sabr.org/join today. All right, Evan, last licks. What's going on in the playoffs?
Just update. So today is the last day of the regular season. Roswell, the team that I was pitching coach for 4 games at the beginning of the year, clinched the second wild card spot, and they're facing 26-18 Tucson, the first round of the playoffs in Roswell tomorrow. The Austin Weirdos right now are 7-43. They've won 6 more games than last year's 1 victory season. So that's a positive development for Austin, an all-road team. The North Platte 80s, who I visited last week, and we interviewed manager Todd Everleft. They're now 16-33. They've had a strong last third of the season, and they're actually in the standings behind Roswell. They passed Pecos and they passed Santa Fe, so not bad for an expansion team. And then last but not least, Peter Bocchino's Trinidad Triggers, 34-16, face the Blackwell Flycatchers tomorrow night in the first round of the playoffs.
Looking for another ring.
Looking to get the first ring. No rings here.
Oh, that'd be the first one. That's right. It'd be the first one. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, got to get the first ring. Got to beat the James Harden narrative, not being able to win the championship.
Right.
Well, I want to wish Peter good luck in the playoffs. This has been a fantastic interview. I want to thank Evan for his terrific kickoff and getting all of these guests as we go along. And on that note, for Evan Katz and Peter Bocchino, I'm Bruce Fuller. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.